The following is a presentation of Major League Baseball Productions.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Phillies Baseball.
Phillies programs and yearbooks.
Phillies. The name has been around forever.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
But what does it really mean? The answer is the obvious.
It's just a Philly thing.
We're the best sports franchise in Philadelphia.
This is for Philadelphia!
Phillies originated as a shortened form of the city it calls home. But after more than a century of baseball, Phillies has come to mean different things to many people.
World champions of baseball!
The family.
A bunch of blue-collar guys.
Whiz kids. And the Whiz kids. Macho roll mullets.
Wacky, wonderful, bunch of throwbacks.
Yes, we can.
1964.
Black Friday.
Is trapped by Luzinski.
Connie Mack Stadium.
The vet.
Citizens Bank Park.
The Fanatic.
Philly fanatic.
The players.
Over Cleveland Alexander.
Chuck Klein.
Robin Roberts. Whitey. Lefty.
Dick Allen.
Michael Jack Schmidt.
Swinging long drive.
Ryan Howard.
The Sarge.
J-Roll.
How we do it, baby.
Nails. Hollywood.
Cole Hamels has been outstanding.
The fans.
The fans.
The fans.
One name, countless memories. No matter how you define it, these are the Philadelphia Phillies. While professional baseball in Philadelphia began in 1871 with the Athletics, one of 9 teams in the National Association of Professional Baseball Players, it wasn't until a team from Worcester, Massachusetts was brought to the city in 1883 that the Phillies came to be. Unfortunately, their first season was not very memorable.
1883 came along, and the Phillies entered the National League. It was a rather disastrous year. They won 17 and lost 81.
In 1887, the Phillies moved from Recreation Park to what would become Baker Bowl, a rather odd park whose short right field fence was covered with tin. Yet despite its friendly confines, the team struggled to score runs. But a new league rule changed everything.
Up until the 1892 season, the baseball mound was, and hard to believe, 50 feet away from home plate. After the 1892 season, they moved it to its present 60 feet 6 inches. And this immediately showed in the batting averages.
The Philadelphia hitters embraced the extra 10.5 feet that they got to see the ball. In fact, it led a trio of Phillies to make history and forever etch their names in the record books.
In 1894, the Philadelphia Phillies actually fielded an all 400 hitting outfield in Sam Thompson, Sliding Billy Hamilton, and Ed Delahanty.
Delahanty was arguably the greatest hitter in Phillies history. He hit career totals of .346, the 4th highest batting average in baseball history.
Yet despite their team batting average of .349, the Phillies finished a disappointing 4th in 1894, an omen of decades of frustration still to come. Philadelphia fans in the early 1900s were no different than today. They loved a winner, and the American League Athletics did just that.
Philadelphia was primarily an athletics town, with good reason. Connie Mack's teams over the first 15 years of the century, they were the team in the American League.
The A's captured 9 pennants and 5 championships between 1901 and 1931.
They were the Yankees of their time. So the Phillies were just an also-run team.
And while the Phillies never finished first in their first 30 years of existence, they did have a few select players who made quite an impact, like Nap Lajoie, who hit .345 in 5 years as the Phillies' starting second baseman. Epa Rixey went on to win 266 games, the most by any NL lefty until Warren Spahn passed him 25 years later. And the real power threat was outfielder Gabby Cravath, Phillies' kind of guy.
Gabby Cravath led the National League in home runs year after year, taking advantage of a very short right field wall in Baker Bowl. Cravath later became manager of the Phillies, which was almost a punishment. The Philly teams were so inept. It got to a point where Cravath finally resigned and gave up his baseball career. He went to California, where he subsequently became a justice of the peace. And out there we can assume he received more justice and more peace than he ever had as manager of the Phillies.
But the fortune of the team would soon change after they signed a rookie pitcher from Elba, Nebraska, a man destined to become one of the game's national treasures.
In 1911, the Philadelphia Phillies introduced to the league a right-hander named Grover Cleveland Alexander.
Alexander was named after Grover Cleveland, who was president when he was born.
He arrived in the National League and immediately established a record which has never been bettered. He won 28 games, a rookie record. Doubtful that's ever going to be topped. By 1915, Alexander was the #1 pitcher in the National League, winning 30 or more for 3 consecutive seasons, regularly leading the league in strikeouts, earned run averages, you name it.
Behind Alexander's mighty right arm, the Phillies captured their first pennant in 1915. But their opponent in the World Series had so many good pitchers, their imposing young lefty never threw a pitch.
Well, the Phillies that year were playing the Boston Red Sox, which of course at that time had a fellow named Babe Ruth on the team. He was a pitcher at that point. The Phillies behind Alexander won the first game of the series and then fell into a bit of a slump and lost the series in 5 games. And Alexander, I think, always sort of blamed himself.
1916, Alexander continued his dominance on the mound. But in 1917, with the war coming on, fearing that Alex was going to be drafted, the Phillies did the smart thing and traded him to the Chicago Cubs for players and a lot of money. Alex did indeed go off to war, suffered greatly in artillery barrages, and when he came back, he was no longer the Alexander of his Phillies heyday. After the war, the fortunes of the Philadelphia Phillies took a nosedive. The team was stuck in an unfortunate cyclical situation where they weren't winning. They had to sell their stars, and then with the stars gone, they weren't winning. They could never find any traction. They could never keep enough stars to get a winning team. They had to keep unloading them simply to get the team through spring training. One player, Bucky Walters, was another Philly star who was sold to the Cincinnati Reds, said one time that they were rained out in a weekend series in Chicago and they didn't have enough money to get the team home. Kirby Higbee was a fine star pitcher, and someone asked him once, wasn't it disheartening to play under those circumstances? And he said, yeah, it sure was. Didn't they boo you a lot? And he said, no. He said, they wouldn't dare boo us. He said, most of the time we had them outnumbered.
Throughout the 1920s, the Phillies continued to be perennial losers, this despite the fact that they had their share of hitters with pretty good genes.
Hitters are born, not made. You can correct their form to help them, but they must have the natural ability to coordinate with eye and muscle if they ever expect to be a great hitter except Klein.
Klein was one of the few bright spots on the Phillies in the late 20s and early 30s. He was a prodigious slugger, But his talents did not end there.
Chuck Klein is one of the finest ball players that ever played for the Phillies. Running, throwing, fielding, hitting, and hitting with power, the 5 big points of baseball, he could do it all. His swing, and I was only a young kid then, it was short and compact, pop. And that's the swing. It's not a big lazy swing, it's a pop.
His numbers are just mind-boggling. He had a 5-year period starting in 29 where he averaged like 360 with 38 homers, 130 RBIs, 46 doubles. He was the first Philly player to be an MVP. He's the only Phillies player to ever win a Triple Crown. He holds a club record for 170 RBIs. I don't know if that's ever going to be broken.
Klein, of course, took full advantage of the short right field porch in Baker Bowl, which was less than 300 feet away. The problem, though, was everyone on the visiting teams did too.
If you look at the hitting statistics of the Phillies in 1929 and 1930, you say, well, why didn't this team win the pennant? The Phillies were hitting, as a team, over 300. But then, you look at the team's earned run average, 6-something. Still a National League record. It was just impossible to pitch in that ballpark. Sure, Klein knocked the ball against that wall or over that wall, but so were the other hitters. So was Rogers Hornsby and Paul Wainer and Babe Herman and so on. It must have been an awful lot of fun going to games in Baker Bowl. You would have enjoyed yourself if you were both a sadist and a masochist.
The Phillies played their last game at Baker Bowl in 1938, moving to 21st and Lehigh, where they would share Shibe Park with the A's. Unfortunately, it didn't change their losing ways. By 1942, World War II commanded the attention of the nation, and the Phillies, like most every major league team, lost some of their players to the battlefield overseas.
The pitcher we had, Hugh McKay, he was the first major leaguer to be drafted. And sometime around that time, President Roosevelt said that he'd like to see baseball played because the people needed it.
While we have lost many of our star players, the armed forces overseas demand that we play baseball. The fans here in this country want to see our national game continue.
When the war finally came to an end, the players who served changed back into their baseball uniforms, and fans everywhere embraced the return of baseball at its best.
The fans here in this country want to see our national game continue.
During the war and after it ended, the Phillies continued to lose. In addition to their perennial last-place finishes, a front office scandal arose in 1943.
The club was owned by a guy by the name of Bill Cox, who got into some trouble for betting on games.
Why he did that is still a mystery because the Phillies were bad that year, so we never knew why he was wasting his money betting on Phillies games.
Commissioner Kennesaw Landis imposed a lifetime ban from the game on Cox, and the team had to find another owner.
Ultimately, Cox was removed from his presidency of the Phillies, and that's what opened the doors for the Carpenter family to become owners in late 1943.
28-year-old Bob Carpenter was the youngest club president in baseball history, and he faced quite a task.
The club, when it was purchased by my grandfather, was not in very good shape, either talent-wise or financially.
Through 1948, the Phillies had only one first division finish, and the Phillies were regarded as the bottom of the barrel in the National League.
Carpenter was determined to erase the losing tradition the Phillies had fostered, and that included near drastic measures.
After he took over the team, Carpenter thought that the name Phillies had a losing stigma, so he ran a contest for people to submit names to rename the team. Well, the winning entry was Blue Jays.
Well, the Philadelphia Blue Jays just didn't sound right, so Carpenter took a different approach toward changing the culture. one that would take both time and patience.
Carpenter, with the help of his general manager, Herb Pennock, thought that the way to improve this team was to build a farm system, to sign young players.
And of course, in those days, there was no draft system. If you discovered a player, you just went out and you signed the player right there.
As a result, Carpenter and Pennock became first-rate talent scouts and came up with a way to secure the players they coveted.
Carpenter was one of the early owners to give big bonuses to players.
They were very fortunate to put the money, so to speak, on the right horses.
They signed Richie Ashburn, Del Ennis, who was a homegrown guy from Philadelphia. Ultimately, they signed Kurt Simmons and Robin Roberts.
I joined them in June of '48. As that year progressed, we didn't do well as a team, but then pitchers started coming. Bubba Church and Bob Miller came up.
And they had a whole collection of young players that eventually came up to the team. And it pulled the Phillies once and for all out of the doldrums.
In fact, come 1949, they gave Philly fans their first winning season in 17 years.
From that time on, the Phillies became known as the Whiz Kids because there were so many young players. The average age of the team was 26.
This scrappy, hard-nosed team had the entire city focused on baseball.
A lot of them were blue-collar, tough, down-in-the-dirt players. They had that underdog approach to them where people said they're not supposed to win, but they're playing well.
People just loved the Whiz Kids. Del Ennis, Granny Hamner, Willie Jones, just a classic bunch of players.
And no one was more beloved or better exemplified the Whiz Kids mentality than Whitey, Richie Ashburn.
Whitey was the most fierce competitor I ever met, and he just showed up every day and played as hard as he could.
As I look back, I have absolutely no reservations about what I put in to the ball game.
They loved the way he gave out. He hustled, he bore down every day, and he was something special.
Behind their eventual two-time batting champion, the Whiz Kids played solid ball throughout 1950. But just when it looked like they would run away with a pennant, bad things began to happen.
We were ahead 7.5 games in September the 10th, and Kurt Simmons was called into the National Guard.
Another one of their starting pitchers, Bob Miller, suffered a back injury.
Bubba Church, another rookie pitcher, had been injured, hit by a line drive. So the starting staff was in big trouble, and it all came down to the last day of the season.
Clinging to a one-game lead on the final day, Simmons could only listen as Robin Roberts made his fourth start in 9 days, with the pennant on the line.
I started warming up, and I didn't feel top drawer. I was a little stiff and sore from all the pitching. I looked over at Newcomb warming up, and I thought to myself, well, he's pitched as much as I have, so we're even. And I didn't give any more thought to that.
Both men excelled, and the game remained tied at 1 into the 9th. But then, with 2 men on, Duke Snyder appeared to end it.
Snyder singled to center field. The runner on second, Cal Abrams, was coming around third and should have been held up because that ball was hit like a bullet.
The ball was hit hard, a one-hopper. It charged it quickly, caught it, and threw it accurately, and it wasn't even close.
Here comes the throw from center field. He is out.
Whitey's heroics allowed the game to move into the 10th, where with 2 men on, Dick Sisler came up clutch.
Swinging a fly, very, very deep toward left field. Moving back, Abrams.
It didn't look like it had enough height to get out of there.
Way back. He can't get it. It's a home run.
But it went in just over the thing there. And what an exciting thing it was for us who had been scrambling to win a ball game. It couldn't have happened to a nicer person.
A home run for Dick Sisler.
The Phillies had taken a 4-1 lead, and when Roberts closed out his start in the bottom of the 10th, they celebrated their first league pennant in 35 years.
For it to end up winning the pennant, especially like we did in Ebbets Field, was very satisfying.
That was a wonderful experience and was my most enjoyable year in the major leagues because it was a good bunch of guys.
And so the 1950 World Series got underway with the defending champion Yankees facing the underdog Phillies, who were without a starting pitcher for Game 1.
The Philadelphia Phillies hadn't been to the World Series since 1915. They come back to Philadelphia to open the World Series, and the manager, Eddie Sawyer, has no pitcher. Who's he going to use? Everybody's drained, beaten because they've been pitching so much, so he decides to pitch the relief ace of the season, Jim Constanti.
Jim Constanti won the most valuable player that year. He had a phenomenal season. Started that first game of the World Series. The only game he started all year.
The first relief pitcher to win the MVP award was masterful, but the Phillies still lost 1-0, setting the tone for the series.
Subsequently, the Phillies lost 3 series games by 1 run, and then in the 4th and deciding game, they lost 5-2 and were hence swept in the series.
When you lose like that, no matter what the score is, you just got whipped. That's the only way you could put it. Now, if you want to analyze it and look at statistics and all that, it was a close series.
Against the best team in baseball, the Phillies had fought the good fight. And after decades of watching October baseball from afar, their fans appreciated the effort.
The series, having been here, was almost enough for the fans to be highly satisfied, and the Whiz Kids were forever one of Philadelphia's favorite baseball teams.
And as years went by, everybody in Philadelphia and in that area looked back to that Whiz Kids team of 1950 because it was so exciting.
Unfortunately, the Whiz Kids never did win another pennant. But they did produce 2 premier baseball legends in Ashburn and Roberts. 1950 marked the first of 6 straight 20-win seasons for Roberts, who once threw 28 straight complete games and finished just short of 300 wins in his career. And after Whitey finally hung up the spikes, he embarked on a new and wonderful career with the Phillies.
In 1962, I pitched for Baltimore. I came home that winter, and a guy named Les Quayle worked for EW Air, I think it was, and he asked me if I wanted to retire and be an announcer. And I said, no, I wanted to pitch some more. He said, well, you know, do you have anybody in mind? And I said, well, call Richie. He just had a year with the Mets, and he may be interested in that. And there, that was the story. From then on, Whitey was the announcer with the Phillies. He did have an interest, and he did retire from baseball.
The first day he was ever in a booth was in Jack Russell Stadium in Clearwater, in spring training. And we put a microphone down in front of him, and he had a classic line. He said, boy, this looks like a real easy game from here.
Ball playing had a lot to do with it, but the announcing probably won him over to the fans more because he was a part of their life for 50 years.
They have won their division title the last 2 seasons, and I think that
And 1 year after Richie made his broadcasting debut, the Phillies got their first chance for a pennant in more than a decade.
Well, the 1964 team kind of came out of nowhere.
Last year, the Phils wound up 4th. Now, Gene Mock's men find themselves taking dead aim on their first pennant since 1950.
64 was a great year for the Phillies individually. Dick Allen came up with the team and ultimately was named Rookie of the Year.
We had outstanding rookies around. There was a bunch to choose from. I think they gave me some like 21 of the 22 votes.
It was also the year in which Jim Bunning pitched a perfect game on Father's Day.
He struck him out. Jim Bunning has pitched a perfect game.
He had put together a team that was certainly a contender.
On September the 20th, the Phillies flew home from Los Angeles with a 6.5 game lead, 12 games to play, and the World Series tickets were being printed. They were making arrangements at Connie Mack Stadium.
The Phillies' collapse at the end of the 1964 season actually began in a game with Cincinnati. Chico Ruiz stole home with Frank Robinson batting.
One of the best hitters in baseball. And here comes Chico Ruiz stealing home with Frank Robinson, the hitter, and scoring and making it.
That's crazy. You know, nobody steals home with Frank Robinson hitting. But he did it.
But before that, Willie Davis stole home in the 16th inning in L.A. that beat us 1-0. We had 10 games in a row, so.
Little did they know they were going to lose 10 straight games. They ended up losing the pennant, not going to the World Series, and it was the biggest disaster and maybe the biggest collapse in baseball history.
So I don't know whether it was in the card. Baseball's a game of inches. Maybe the inches is what beat us. But the big thing about it, we didn't beat ourselves. That's a good baseball team. We just didn't win it.
it still sticks in the minds of a lot of people. For many years, they bore the scars of this loss, even though there have been many things and many memories and great seasons that should have erased that.
And that was a very painful thing that hung with the city for a long time. And there for a while, we thought the 64 Phillies were going to replace the 50 Phillies, and it didn't happen.
Between 1950 and 1964, there hadn't been a lot of bright moments in the Phillies' history on the field, so it was just devastating.
Now, at the time, you didn't realize the legacy that it was going to have, that it was going to be maybe something that unfortunately defined the organization for a long time.
The unfortunate sequel to that is that the Phillies never contended again with that team. And within a few years, they started to break up the team and sold or traded some of the players, brought in new players, and it was pretty much downhill after that.
With the dawn of a new decade, the time had come for the Phillies to say goodbye to their aging home.
Connie Mack Stadium obviously was not a very good location at that particular time in history, and it was definitely time for a move.
Prior to their final game at Connie Mack, the Phillies paid tribute to the past, honoring 62 seasons of baseball at this inner-city ballpark. They then closed out the present era with an extra-inning triumph. But fans were not content with simply memories of the venerable old ballpark, and many of them sought out something more tangible. The time had come for the Phillies and their fans to move on.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Welcome to New Veterans Stadium at opening day. Line drive, that's a hit off the bat of Larry Boas. Now the first hit. Veterans Stadium, and it goes justifiably to Larry Boas.
At the time, it seemed like a miracle compared to what was there before the vet. The vet seemed like a palace. Now, its time as a structure that belonged in Architectural Digest wore off really fast. But it was just very exciting to have this place.
Unfortunately, the stadium proved more exciting that year than the team that called it home, as the 71 Phillies finished with just 67 wins. Pitcher Rick Wise provided the season's highlight one unforgettable night in June by dominating Cincinnati both with his arm and his bat, a 1-2 punch that no pitcher in history has ever matched.
There's a well-hit ball, deep left field, that might go. It is a home run for Rick Wise, his second of the game. And what a story that... Here's the 3-2 pitch. Swing a line drive, he did it! Vukovich made the throw, Wise has done it! A no-hit, no-run game!
But Wise was traded in the offseason for a left-hander named Steve Carlton, a deal the Phillies simply could not pass up.
I mean, with all due respect, Rick Wise was a very good pitcher, but Steve Carlton in 1971 had pitched lights out for the St. Louis Cardinals, so it was basically a no-brainer deal from our standpoint.
And Steve quickly proved his worth, winning 27 games for a team that won just 59. That's 46% of their wins, the highest mark since 1901. Lefty's starts were worthy of a special name.
He'd walk up to everybody's locker and pat on my back and say, today's win day, today's win day. I look back on that right now, it sounds a little selfish. What's that make the other 4 days, you know?
More often than not, Blues days.
To have a guy win 27 games for a team that bad, there's never been one pitcher who, when he went to the mound, turned his team into the 27 Yankees. And all the other days, they were the worst team that ever played baseball. Face it, it's impossible. It's not just amazing, it's impossible.
It was the most dominating pitching performance, I think, in the history of baseball, especially when you consider how poor overall the team was that was playing behind Steve Carlton.
Come on, lefty, strike him out!
It was the most unusual and awesome year in strange ways because of the fact that every time Steve Carlton pitched, we would have 15,000 more people in the stands.
which left Giles with a challenge, filling those seats when their ace was not on the mound, and Bill pulled out all the stops.
Bill Giles' Phillies promotions were fun for everyone at the vet during the season. Besides the many contests, there were always giveaways.
My concept was to have something strange like the Great Wallenda.
Now he's going to stand on his head. I don't believe it.
And almost twice a week we would have some unusual promotion. And my whole theory was to get people out here and hope that they liked it well enough that they might even buy a season ticket.
The promotions worked, but it wasn't long before those fans were cheering something else. A young and exciting team ready to explode on the National League scene.
For the first time in years, the big story was not Kite Man or Cannon Man, marching bands or money scrambles. The star was the team.
In the early 1970s, Paul Owens, Dallas Green, Ruley Carpenter, the owner, were committed to the farm system, to bringing up young players, to building from within.
The architect was GM Paul Owens, and his strong foundation began to take shape in 1974.
The farm system began to produce some great players. Larry Boa.
Number 10 had range and a rifle arm.
Greg Luzinski.
The upper body of a weightlifter, but just like a pure hitter, that short, quick stroke.
Ball, take him all,
Michael Jack Schmidt.
Philadelphia's Sultan of Swat. Number 20 was big, quick, and agile.
From then on, the next few years was really growing a team and working up the ladder in the standings.
We were all in it together like a bunch of fraternity brothers. We worked out in the off-season, we had a traveling basketball team, we stayed together in spring training, and we were growing together in the era where we, as a team, you stayed together.
With 80 wins in 1974, the Phillies made their case as a team on the rise, and they cashed in on a slogan that the city quickly embraced.
Philly fans were hungry for a team to get back to postseason, and it was the '76 team that did it.
The Phillies celebrated a division title and 101 wins. But a sobering fact remained. Philadelphia had not won a postseason game since 1915.
In 1976, they were blown out by the Cincinnati Reds. That was when it was a best-of-5 series in the National League Championship Series in 3 games. They just didn't know how to handle it. They got there, that was the goal, and they did nothing else.
Of course, they did lose to one of the best teams of all time in '76. But unfortunately, it was a sign of things to come.
In '77, we had the finest, I think, team in baseball, the most powerful offensive teams, strong pitching staff. This team was winning, and winning became very contagious. The toughest thing about those years were the playoffs.
The '77 LCS marked the first blow delivered in a classic rivalry with the Dodgers.
The Dodgers cheat, their pitching staff cheats, their grounds crew cheats.
All due respect to the Los Angeles Dodgers and that crew, Garvey and Say and Lopes and the guys on that team, we probably were, man for man, the best team in baseball.
On the road for Game 1 of the championship series, the Phils' bite lived up to their bark as they powered their way to a 7-5 victory, their first postseason win in 62 seasons.
First one's a big one, man. That's the first one. Tomorrow, win, and then we can have a nice plane trip home.
But the Phils didn't win Game 2. And the trip home, with the series tied at 1 win apiece, set the stage for perhaps the most excruciating game in Philadelphia sports history.
We all talk about Black Friday.
Most disheartening baseball experience that I've ever had.
It's not that I remember anything, I remember everything from that game.
At the start, the fans had plenty of reasons to hoot and holler.
Here was Bert hooting. Couple of balls, couple questionable calls by Harry Wendelstedt, the home plate umpire, close pitches, frustrated him.
Oh, that was close.
And then, of course, the fans stood up and took over the game.
Low ball four, he walked him to Morse and a run. The intimidating factor that is the Philadelphia fan, Putin has just come on blue.
Just because Philadelphians were doing what they do, they were making this guy wish that he did something else for a living. He could not throw a strike.
He forces in another run. 3 straight runs forced in by Bert Hooten, and here comes Tom Lasorda. This will be all for Hooten.
It was a beautiful moment. If the game had just ended there, it would have been one of Philadelphia's greatest sporting triumphs because the Phillies were about to win that game.
There was 2 outs and nobody on base. You think it's over. You've been around baseball too long to ever think anything can happen until you get the 27th out. But, Vic Davalillo's up, and you're thinking, he's not going to hit a home run here and tie the game. And darn if he doesn't butt and get on.
A drag bunt, it's a beauty by Davalillo.
The manager at the time, Danny Ozark, forgot to change his defensive replacement. Greg Luzinski, a great slugger but not a very good left fielder, was out there. Jerry Martin used to come in later in those games and play defense. Ozark did not make the switch. Manny Mota hits a ball out to left field.
Fly ball deep left, Luzinski going away back, and this ball is trapped by Luzinski. It's a double for Manny Mota. Gets away, coming in to score Davalillo. Luzinski could not pull it off.
It wasn't an easy play for me. A lot of people don't realize when the ball goes up, a lot of times there's 50,000 people in the seats that see it, and the other 2 outfielders pick it up, but you lose it in that twilight sky, and I can't make excuses on it. The ball should have been caught cleanly.
The hindsight is that Jerry Martin would have caught the ball and we'd have went on to the World Series. Who knows?
Here's Davey Lopes, game on the line.
Davey Lopes hit a hard ground ball to my left. I should have made the play. I did.
Ground ball off Smith. To Boa. A throw. Yes. No. Not in time. This game is tied.
The play that Boa made was unbelievable. He grabbed it with his bare hand and threw in one motion. It was obvious on replays. The base runner was out.
I don't know. You call.
He was out. Out.
Oh, so close. Oh, so close.
The Dodgers went on to win both the game and the series, as the Phillies once again endured a postseason heartbreak.
For a franchise that had never won the World Series, to be that close and then have that inning unravel the way it did, that's a scar that people have never gotten over in Philadelphia.
After the game was over, I went back to my office, and the door was locked. And I was so mad and upset that I hit the door with my fist, and I broke my hand. So I will never forget that either.
The 1978 LCS featured the same 2 teams and, unfortunately, the same result for the Phillies.
Swing and a base hit to center field. Ron Cray rounding third. He'll score. And this league championship series belongs to the Los Angeles Dodgers. Dodgers win it in 10-4-3.
After 3 straight championship series losses, it was clear that this team of talented ballplayers needed a veteran presence to help them blossom.
People said they needed some kind of a push. Everybody thought Pete Rose would be that push.
You talk about a shot in the arm for a bunch of guys that were feeling some serious heat about failing in 76, 77, 78. Now we have Pete.
But in 79, the team took a step back.
We started the season with an unbelievable amount of optimism, and we had a great team, and we finished 4th.
A rash of injuries didn't help, but it also seemed as if the Phils might need a new skipper.
At the end of the season, they fired Danny Ozark, and they brought in Dallas Green to evaluate the team the last month of the season, see where this thing was breaking down.
I really had no thoughts about managing, but we discussed who could get down there and find out things for Pope so that he could make the adjustments that were going to be necessary for 1980.
His first adjustment was to make a permanent manager out of Green.
Dallas looked at that group and thought they were way too comfortable, way too satisfied for a team that had never won a postseason series. And that's what he set out to change.
It's like the Boston Symphony Orchestra. You have a bunch of fabulous musicians, but if you don't have a maestro to put them all together and let them make their music and make that sound come out right, then the musicians are lost. And I think this year Dallas is the kind of maestro the ball club has been looking for.
So were the Phillies playing all the right notes in 1980, or just whistling the same old tune?
From 75 on, we were always in the playoffs, but we always came up short. And so obviously the critics were saying, this is the last year. If they don't do it this year, we're going to break this nucleus up.
All I wanted to do was what they said they wanted to do, which was win a world championship. We thought, at least, we put together a decent game plan that we were going to stick to, and we weren't going to let the players involve themselves except by performing on the field.
Hit a gapper for us. Come on, get us started.
Successful teams are often credited with having great chemistry, but for much of 1980, the Phillies defied that baseball axiom.
In 1980, it was far from a smooth ride. There were lots of turmoil in the clubhouse.
But despite their issues, the team agreed on one thing.
All the club really loved Danny Ozark. They didn't care for Dallas Green at all. I made things a little tough for him.
Come on, let's go. Come on now.
It rankled a lot of the guys, but Pete was on my side from the very beginning.
But while Rose embraced Green's tough love approach, the rest of the team seemed to rebel. And by August, the Phils were mired in third place. Dallas felt the team needed a shock to its system and chose a doubleheader in Pittsburgh to unleash his fury.
In between the first game and the second game in Pittsburgh, in that doubleheader, Dallas Green, the manager, bolted the clubhouse doors, and he let those players have it.
I was irate because I just felt that they had the talent, but they were talking the talk and they just weren't walking the walk. And I was convinced that unless something drastic happened, we were going to go back into the doldrums again. And I wasn't about to let that happen.
Then they begin to get it together. They won a lot of games in September. They were the hottest team in baseball coming down the stretch.
A late season influx of youth also seemed to spark the team. And no young gun played a bigger role than pitcher Marty Bystrup, whose perfect 5-0 September put the Phillies in position to win the National League East, with one crucial series in Montreal left to play. And while the rookies helped to get them there, the team's offensive leaders sealed the deal.
He had to win 2 out of 3 in Montreal to win the National League East to qualify for the National League Championship Series. For me, it was sort of a defining series in terms of playing under pressure and coming through.
Michael Jack came up huge in the first game with a home run that provided the winning margin. But it was his second blast that fans will never forget.
Pitch to Schmidt. Long drive to left field. He buried it. Out of here. Home run. Mike Schmidt puts the Phillies up 6-4. Oh, what a drive by Schmidt. Unbelievable.
I had prodded Smitty all along about trying to get him to relax and trying to let him enjoy hitting big home runs or getting game-winning hits. And to see his emotion going around the bases that time was really special for me.
And Tug McGraw, who allowed just 3 earned runs the final 3 months of the season, ensured the Phillies a return trip to the playoffs.
For that team to win that game the way they won that game really set the stage for everything that was to follow in October. I think it's the greatest postseason baseball series that nobody ever talks about.
Well, for Phillies fans, for sure, what may be the greatest National League Championship Series in history.
The greatest competition, the greatest confrontation in my life of watching sports.
I don't hold any doubts that it was the greatest 5-game series ever played.
Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. 1 run, extra innings.
4 consecutive extra inning games, 4 in a row. It's unheard of.
4 straight extra inning games with that pressure and that tension.
We never gave up. They didn't give up, and it was just who wanted it the most.
Here's the play at the plate. He scores!
The Astros were home for the 5th and deciding game and held a 3-run lead into the 8th. The Phils appeared to have no shot.
When the Astros took the lead in Game 5, the noise. I mean, the sound bouncing off that Astrodome, that was the loudest noise I had ever experienced.
Nolan Ryan had a 3-run lead in the 8th inning. The Houston Astros had to think they were headed for the World Series.
Let's see if there's any comeback now left in the Phils. They have to do it against one of the great pitches.
And it happened so quickly. It was a base hit.
Reynolds, and Bo is on with a single.
There was a ball off the glove of Ryan by Bob Boone that could have been a double play.
That's the break they needed to keep this thing going.
And then a bunt hit by Greg Gross.
Do you believe this? It took less than 3 minutes. They got the bases filled, none out, against so great a pitcher as Nolan Ryan.
And this raucous crowd that they just were going crazy, all of a sudden had that little feeling like, uh-oh.
You can't script what's happened in this series.
With no script, the Phillies ad-libbed a happy ending.
It's a base hit to right center, and we're tied at 5. Curveball down the left field line, base hit going to the corner. Run scores from third, and the Phillies have scored 5 runs in the 8th inning.
Houston, of course, tied it, but the Phils refused to quit.
Maddox swings, line drive, center field. Gould can't get it. Hunter scores, and the Phillies lead 8-7. Here's a punch shot to center field. Maddox racing over. He catches the ball. Phillies win the pennant. The Phillies have won the pennant. The Phillies win the ball game 8-7. They go to the World Series for the first time in 30 years.
You need a little adversity to bring out the character in all these teams. Kansas City likes each other too much. They're going to lose.
And by the time we got to Kansas City, we were pretty confident that we could get through anything. But we also knew that, the history of the Phillies was, you can't win the big one.
But the one Philly who had won the big one had a different take.
The thing that Pete Rose told us in Houston when we were playing, he said, Dallas, he said, if we win this thing, the World Series will be a piece of cake.
I remember us being up 2-0, going into Kansas City and having dinner that night and just telling them that, everything was over. We had this locked up.
But when the series moved west, it became clear that the home team wasn't about to give in. And as the 3rd game of the series unfolded, Kansas City, led by George Brett, proved to be a royal pain in the butt. And Larry Christensen did not take the mound for Game 4 with a great deal of confidence.
I remember warming up in the bullpen. Herm Starrett, the pitching coach, we walked down to the dugout, and Dallas Green with his bellowing voice says, "Hey, Herm, what's he got?" And Herm Starrett says to Dallas, while I'm listening in earshot, says, "Dallas, he ain't got shit." So that was the way my day started.
Unfortunately, Herm Starrett had a pretty good eye.
Suffering the consequences of not performing very well and being taken out of the game by Dallas Green, lo and behold, later in the game, there was a real turning point in this World Series, and that was me helping give Dickie Knowles the opportunity to pitch in the World Series.
Knowles inherited a 4-0 deficit. Not much he could do about that. The turning point came when he faced Brett.
For some reason or another, I just didn't like the way Brett went about his swings, and he
kind of looked down at his bat like it had a hole in it or something. I'm throwing the ball pretty hard.
Strike one.
And I kind of thought about it for a minute and went in my wind-up and...
2 strikes on Fred. Down he goes. There's a message right there.
As I've seen the pitch over and over, it comes right at his face, and he flips. And what an athletic flip that was.
Here comes Jim Fry out. Stop it right now. Stop it right now. Go ahead and stop it. Stop it out there. Go ahead and tell him. We ain't going to have that. Fry wants to go after him.
I think the thing that really motivated us in that whole sequence of what happened was Pete Rose coming to my defense. And then he turned and looked at me and he said, if you want to hit any of those guys, go ahead. Pitch your own ball game. That was Pete Rose. He knew how to take a moment, make it, you know, an advantage for you.
Got him on strikes.
Knowles then fanned Willie Aikens to end the inning. And although the Royals still won Game 4, the tone had been set for the rest of the series. The Tuggers sealed the deal in Game 5 of this Fall Classic, giving the Phillies their third one-run victory of the postseason, and they returned to Philly for Game 6, brimming with confidence.
When we went to the 6th game back in Philadelphia, I don't think I've ever gone into an important game feeling that the Phillies were going to win, but I had this feeling.
It was win day. We were going to win the World Series because Steve Carlton was on the mound. And I think everybody knew it.
Tug McGraw, my good friend, we rode to the park together almost every day that entire year. Tug, I said, you know it's going to happen, you know. You're going to be out there for the final out of this World Series, and man, you got to wait and let me get there.
Carlton was masterful, holding the Royals to 1 run. Michael Jack had 2 RBI, raising his series total to 7, and giving the Phillies a lead they had no intention of relinquishing. With the Phils up by 4 in the 8th, Dallas called on Tugger to get out of a 1st and 2nd no-out jam. This was Tug's 66th game of the year.
By the time he was pitching in the last game of the World Series, we had milked him pretty dry in terms of what his arm could tolerate, but there he was in that tight situation.
Bouncing ball, trio, big hop, has it. Innings over.
Since 1883, the millions of families that supported the Phillies all through those years, some little kid from Napa Valley ends up getting the job to close it out. Woo! The baseball gods were looking after me then.
And at no point was that more apparent than with 1 out in the 9th.
It's popped up. Boone dropped it and Rose caught it. It popped out of his glove and Rose made the play.
He never even thought for a moment of patting himself on the back on the 2nd out of an inning. This game's not over yet. And he flipped the ball and he said, let's get 1 more.
Bases loaded. 2 outs. 2 strikes on Willie Wilson. The crowd will tell you what happened.
He struck out Willie Wilson and turned to look at me and put his arms in the air and said, come on, you know, it was almost saying like, isn't this how we planned it?
There was a lot of relief because we were there 3 other times and didn't succeed. To get to the World Series, it was kind of like the monkey was off our back.
I'm not sure I can really put it into words. I mean, I was crying like a baby, and the first guy I looked for was Paul Owens, because he was my mentor, my friend, and he was the guy that was responsible for me being where I was and for putting that team together.
Philadelphia is just one of the great sports towns, and so we kept hearing a lot about, well, if you guys ever win this, I mean, this town is going to go crazy.
parade, going into JFK Stadium with that completely packed. It's a sight that I'll never forget as long as I live.
All through baseball history, Philadelphia has had to take a back seat to New York City. Well, New York City can take this world championship and stick it, because we're #1!
You have to recognize what that team was. That team was a bunch of Ghostbusters. They didn't just have to beat the Royals. They had to beat the 64 Phillies, and they had to beat the 77 Phillies, and they had to beat all those Phillies teams through all those years that had suffered and made all their fans suffer.
After achieving the ultimate team goal in 1980, some of the Phillies received individual honors in the years to come. Schmidt was MVP in '81. Rose passed Stan Musial to become the all-time hit king in the National League. And Lefty captured a crown of his own.
He got him, and Carlton has become the all-time greatest strikeout pitcher in National League history.
Bill Giles realized his lifelong dream of owning a baseball team in '82. And the Pope, Paul Owens, became the manager 1 year later and had some of the game's senior citizens drinking from the fountain of youth.
Well hit to deep left. Crazy here at Veterans Stadium. Struck him out as the Phillies are the 1983 National League champs.
The Phillies finally vanquished the Dodgers that year, capturing their second pennant in 4 seasons. A near-perfect ending for the architect of the most prosperous decade in team history.
This was for all the people back home. They've got the greatest fans in the world.
Following their trip to the World Series in '83, the Phillies lost the formula for success.
They kept trying to patch instead of build. They kept trying to repair instead of rebuild.
They had just one winning season in the next 9 years, and by '92 had fallen into last place. But there were moments to remember, like in 1990 when Terry Mulholland made history.
Line drive, great grab! Charlie Hayes! And Mulholland has pitched the first 9-inning no-hitter in the history of the bat.
1 year later, Tommy Green took matters into his own hands.
Hard ground ball, great grab, Green! Tommy Green, a no-hitter!
Of course, no pitcher had more memorable moments at the vet than Steve Carlton. The big left-hander led the Phillies to 6 postseason appearances in 8 years and made his case as a certain Hall of Famer while wearing the red and white. But in 1986, it was time to say goodbye.
The greatest left-hand pitcher in Phillies history and one of the greatest pitchers of all time will no longer be pitching.
It was also in the late 80s that fans bid farewell to the greatest third baseman in Philly of all time. Michael Jack Schmidt led the Phils to their first World Series title in 1980, the same year he won his first Most Valuable Player award. 6 years later, he was named MVP for the 3rd time.
It was a rewarding year for me in a sense that it kind of revived my career, allowed me to have that year and one more very productive year, 2 extra very productive years in my career.
Productive and memorable, thanks to a spring day in Pittsburgh in 1987.
Swing a long drive! There it is! The career 500th home run for Michael Jack Schmidt!
But 2 years later, with 548 home runs to his credit, it was time for Mike to walk away. And it certainly wasn't an easy decision to make.
Professional athletes have a tough time retiring, and I was one of them. Robbie Thompson hit a ground ball underneath. I let it go right through my legs. Bases loaded, and Will Clark hit the next pitch for a grand slam home run. That's when I said to myself, I'm playing my last game. I made that weak attempt at a retirement speech.
Some 18 years ago, I left Dayton, Ohio with 2 very bad knees and a dream to become a Major League Baseball player.
I thank God that the dream came true.
Two iconic Phillies were gone, and so it seemed was the winning culture in Philadelphia. And there was no reason to believe that 1993 would be any different.
The club had struggled for a number of years.
They picked Philadelphia, they finished last place.
They had finished last the year before, and so they wanted to go from last to first. They had some real characters of all kinds.
The warden, the general manager of this club, has done a fine job in assembling a prison squad.
You keep talking about how much you like this team and you like this bunch of guys. Why is this team so attractive to you?
Kind of like family, they're all a bunch of sick bastards.
So these Phillies had great chemistry, and they could hit. But would that be enough?
We got a great offense. The only thing we have to hope for is our pitching. If some of us don't die of heart attacks and keep his team intact, we'll be all right. If we can keep Mitch out of games, we'll be fine.
They called Mitch the Wild Thing, the perfect closer for this wild bunch. Mitch never made things easy for himself, but more often than not, he'd prevail.
A double play ball. Duncan turns it.
With this wacky group of guys, everyone knew the Flames would have plenty of laughs in '93.
Too many guys.
But would they have the last laugh come October? Could they find a way to erase nearly a decade worth of frustration in Philly?
Game 1 of the season, Terry Mulholland pitches a complete game against Houston.
Strike 3 call.
We have a chance here being pretty good after Game 1.
We swept that series.
Swing and a miss to end the ball game.
And that was really what got us started.
We just sent a message to the rest of the league that you guys pounded us in 1992, but we're not going to have it anymore.
Leading the charge was their center fielder and catalyst, a guy so tough they called him
Nails.
Lenny played all but one game in '93, and he played them with reckless abandon.
A stand-up double for the dude, Lenny Dykstra.
Whatever it takes, dude, was Dykstra's mantra that year, and the Phils fed off their emotional leader all season long.
We kind of came out of nowhere, me and Dalton.
Long drive, deep right field, home run, Darren Dalton.
Kruk.
Kruk looks like the type of guy that went to a fantasy camp and stayed.
We all put our big years together that year and would never say never.
And they specialized in dramatic comeback wins.
Kruk has a green light deep to right center field. Bell is back. It's out of here. A home run for the Krukers. And the Phillies have won it 14-4-3 here at Veterans Stadium.
They didn't win pretty, and they didn't look all that great either.
They basically came out of mud holes every day to play. They always looked like they'd already played 9 before they took the field.
Yeah, the Phillies were kind of the, and I say this with the utmost affection, kind of the dirtbags of baseball that year.
You wouldn't want any of us dating your daughters. But if a run needed to be driven in or someone needed to get on base to ignite an inning, I would take that team over any that I've seen in a while.
The city fell in love with the '93 team.
Mitch Williams now is yelling at the shield.
They were a bunch of blue-collar guys that were tough.
Hard ground ball to short. Here comes Incaviglia. Throw home, dropped by Spear.
And these Phillies fans, they're starting to believe.
But could these Phillies really go the distance? Well, fans got a hint that they were something special in Game 2 of a July doubleheader that seemed like it would never end. But an unlikely hero finally said enough.
He could literally win his own ball game here. Swing and a base hit to left center field. Incaviglia's going to score. This game is over. On an RBI hit by Mitchie Poo. The Phils have won it 6-5 and 10 on the Wild Things RBI hit.
When that game was over, you knew that this was going to be a special season for the Phillies.
By late August, this team, predicted to finish last, had an 11-game lead and led the league with 697 runs scored. 1 month later, they clinched it.
Grounded down the first base side, fair ball. Kruk fields it underhands, covered by Paul. The game is over, and the Phillies are the National League East champions.
When
we know we're going to be underdogs and just go.
He had high apple pie in the sky.
National League East champ, baby. Yes. National League East champ. Shell always finds a way to find a camera.
Baseball's postseason returns to Philadelphia for the first time in 10 years as the Phillies host the Atlanta Braves in Game 1 of the National League Championship Series.
It was America's team versus America's most wanted. What they didn't bring into account was the personalities on our team and the fact that we wouldn't quit no matter what happened.
The Phils led Game 1 by 1 after 8, but not for long.
Several changes for the Phils. Kim Baptiste will come into the game to play third base, and the new pitcher is the wild thing, Mitch Williams.
Kim was in the game for his defense and became a part of Phillies lore.
Swing ground ball to third, it might be 2. Wide throw by Baptiste to right field. It's safe all around.
The Braves would tie it up, but in the 10th, redemption.
You got Kim Baptiste, the batter. If there was ever a redeemer situation, this would be it for Kim.
Swing a hard ground ball, base hit! Base hit! Down the left field line! Brooks scores! Phils win! 4-3 on the RBI hit by Kim Baptiste! What a big win in Game 1 for the Fighting Phils!
With the series tied at 2 games apiece, the Phils appeared to be on the verge of winning Game 5 in Atlanta with a 3-0 lead in the 9th. But it was one of those outings by Mitch that was anything but easy on the eyes.
Chopped up the middle. Stoker couldn't get it. Here comes McGriff with the tying run.
A lesser team might have given up, but in the 10th, Nails nailed it.
3-2 pitch, swing, and a well-hit ball to deep center field. Nixon back. It's out of here. Home run, Lenny Dykstra. Yeah! And the Phils have taken a 4-3 lead here in the 10th.
That was a Mr. October moment.
And the Phillies have taken a 3-2 lead, and they'll take that advantage back to Philadelphia.
We pretty much told the tomahawk chop to take a seat, you know.
Back home for Game 6, the Phils look to secure their 5th pennant in franchise history.
The payoff pitch. He struck him out. And the Philadelphia Phillies have won the National League pennant.
I'm still trying to figure out, how did that team win it? That team had no business winning, but that kind of summed up the '93 Phillies. They just kept finding a way.
In the World Series, the Phillies seemed out of step right from the start, as the Toronto Blue Jays captured 2 of the first 3. But the frustration was gone by the start of Game 4, for the vet was rocking.
Those drops we saw all day were raindrops, not tears. It's only Game 4, and it could even up tonight with a Philadelphia win.
What fans saw was the biggest slugfest in postseason history. Back and forth it went, and in the 5th, the Phillies appeared to take a commanding lead.
Well hit down the right field line. Carter drifting toward the pole. Home run! Way out of here. The Phillies lead 12-7.
They've got a 5-run lead. That's a game they've got to win.
We forgot just how powerful that the Blue Jays really were offensively.
Base hit.
Game 4 was one of the craziest games I ever played in. No matter what happened, the ball found a way to fall in.
The bullpen gave up 6 eighth-inning runs in the crushing 15-14 defeat.
And the Toronto Blue Jays have won the highest-scoring game in postseason history. To take a 3-1 lead.
That was devastating.
How are they going to pick themselves up and just get through another game? The answer was simple in Game 5. Curt Schilling was going to take the baseball, and he was not going to let go of the baseball.
147 pitches later, he'd thrown the first complete game shutout in Phillies postseason history.
Tipped into the mid, strike 3. Schilling continues to hit the spots. He struck him out.
Talk about a guy that was out on a mission.
And the Phillies are 1 out away from sending this series back to Toronto. Dykstra is there. The Phillies win. A brilliant 5-hit shutout for Curt Schilling.
The Phillies returned to Canada riding the wave of Schilling's shutout, but momentum is only as good as that day's starting pitcher, and Mulholland gave up 5 runs in 5 innings. Meanwhile, Dave Stewart was dealing.
Phillies running out of time. They're batting in the 7th, down 5-1.
The center fielder, number 4, Lenny Dykstra.
As they had all season, the Phils looked to Lenny for a spark.
And it's uh-oh time for Blue Jays and their fans.
This is the time I knew I had to do something big, not just a base hit, to get us back in this game.
Swing and a well-hit ball to deep right. This ball's out of here. Home run the dude. Phillies are right back in this ball game. It's 5-4 in the 7th.
When Dykstra hit a 3-run home run, I said, we're going to win this whole thing. We are going to win this whole thing, because I thought the momentum had really changed.
Duncan will score. This game is tied at 5.
I think this crowd is stunned, Harry.
Phillies lead 6-5 on a sacrifice fly by Incaviglia.
Last chance for Toronto coming up.
We needed to get 3 outs in the 9th. We never had 100% faith when Mitch came in. You know, nicknamed the Wild Thing, and he was definitely that.
43 saves this year.
The Blue Jays need a run before 6 innings. 2 runs and they're the world champion. Ball 4. Williams walks Henderson on 4 pitches to open the 9th. Line to center, falling fast to hit.
You know, I'll always remember being on first base and, you know, looking at John Kruk. I said, man, isn't this awesome? And he goes, I don't think it's so awesome right about now.
And the run that would win the World Series is at first, and Joe Carter is the batter.
Come on, Mitch!
2 balls and 2 strikes. Well hit down the left field line.
As soon as Joe hit the ball, I knew it was gone. I did a double take on it, but I looked at it for the second time and saw the same thing I saw the first time and just started walking to the dugout.
The Blue Jays have repeated as World Series champions.
It had been such a magical year. I think we all just sort of expected something good was going to happen. It wasn't the way that season was supposed to end.
Following one of the most fantastic seasons in Phillies history, the '94 campaign opened with a new look and a renewed confidence that another title was in the offing. But the highlight of the home opener was the return of the Trucker, who was still in the midst of his battle with cancer.
He has come back from the diagnosis of testicular cancer. He has joined the team. 2 more radiation treatments, maybe not 100%.
It was a dumb move on my part because I was still going through radiation treatments. I was very weak, very tired all the time. But it was opening day. It was ring day, you know, for us to get our National League Championship rings, and I wanted to be a part of it.
Listen to this ovation for the next hitter. They're standing.
That was more than just fans and baseball player. I mean, that was human beings who really cared about a player as another human being.
Pitch, swing and a line shot to right center. It's a camper. And would you believe it? The Trucker at second with a double.
The greatest moment was playing in the World Series with that team.
You talk about rising to the occasion. I mean, this is high theater here today.
But the greatest individual moment for me, selfishly, it was that with the fans. It was unbelievable.
But all the goodwill and emotion of the opener soon gave way to a series of injuries defeats, and eventually no baseball.
Grounded towards the hole. Morandini's going to knock it down. Mondesi will score on the play.
Yeah, 93 was one of the happiest times in the history of the franchise. And then the strike hit in 94, and it never felt the same. By the time 95 rolled around, they started to break up that team. The farm system was in disarray. It almost seemed like the franchise was in this spiral then. The late 90s were worse than the late 80s.
Baseball in Philly had lost its luster, and the despair was felt by everyone, including a former team bat boy and the son of the only father-son combo to wear a Phillies uniform.
I really felt truly bad after every game. It was kind of an empty feeling that, you wish you could have done something better or more to help the team have more success. But just like anything else, winning and losing, they're both contagious.
A jam-packed bet for this home opener, and they will try and change the pattern. The last two have been losses.
Every year, that team would lose on opening day, and 60,000 people would show up, and then most of them would never come back. And the people who did come back, they weren't happy people. They weren't happy to be there, and those were not happy times.
10, 12,000 people in the ballpark and basically playing in the cellar. It was unfortunate to see that we were not the kind of product that the fans deserved and needed.
But while the current Phillies failed to fill the vet, a trio of former Phillies brought record-setting crowds to Cooperstown.
Go Phillies!
As these icons of the game were enshrined into the National Baseball Hall of Fame. It began with Steve Carlton in '94, followed by His Whiteness Richie Ashburn and Michael Jack in '95.
One of the most popular athletes in the history of Philadelphia, ladies and gentlemen, Richie Ashburn.
The Phillies are a family, a dedicated family with people behind the scenes who are wonderful to me. And what about the Phillies fans? You, in fact, have stretched the city limits of Philadelphia all the way to Cooperstown. It's unbelievable. My relationships with Philadelphia fans has always been misunderstood. Can we put that to rest here today?
Phillies fans also turned out in droves when the city played host to the 1996 All-Star Game.
First time the game has been here in 20 years.
And it was that same year that a future All-Star made his late-season debut with the team and captivated the fans with his acrobatic play.
On the ground in the hole, rolling, dives and makes the catch, gets up and throws it. A nice play.
One season later, Scott Rowland was named Rookie of the Year.
He was kind of our wonder boy. He was kind of the knight in shining armor, in so much that he was going to be, one of those first players that were going to reap the benefits of his talents.
Fastball hit the deep left field. This baby is out of here, and a tie game for the Phillies.
Scott did a tremendous job for us. He was really the first player in an extended period of time that came through the organization and had the type of impact that the championship caliber club needs to have, both offensively and defensively.
Scott Rowland spins, fires. What a nice play!
I believe there's a gold glove in that young man's future.
Catcher Mike Lieberthal was another homegrown product who was blossoming. And first baseman Rico Bronya was making plays at first base that defied belief.
With a diving grab, and the Phillies win it.
Center fielder Doug Glanville could identify with a renewed sense of optimism in the city.
Playing for the Phillies, it was like a kid in a candy store. I mean, I was a huge Philly fan growing up, and all of a sudden I'm thrust into an environment where all my favorite players are now my coaches, or they're walking around the locker room every day, so I was in heaven.
There were also some fresh faces in management, like GM Ed Wade.
Ed had a tough time right out of the chute because he basically had to fire about 30 or 40 people. He changed the entire culture. He knew that it was important for us to get back to the grassroots, and he understood that you have to build this thing from within to bring the kind of talent to the organization that was necessary.
We talk forever and a day in this game about how the grassroots is what it's all about, player development and scouting.
Some of those young players were already up, and there was a shortstop in the minors who was making giant strides.
Jimmy Rollins on fire. Another base hit. He had the game-winning home run in the 10th inning last night.
I figure I probably may start off in Clearwater again and come up sometime during the season, but, they put me here, had some confidence, and I responded well.
Wade then looked at the 1998 draft to beef up the team's offense even more.
Philadelphia selects Burrow, Patrick B., University of Miami. We are selecting
Later in the same draft, they secured pitcher Ryan Madsen.
I think the seeds for the revival were actually laid when Ed Wade made this commitment to try to do it the way Paul Owens did it.
In addition to the draft, the Phillies also made some shrewd trades, like the one that brought Bobby Abreu into the fold.
Deep to right center field. Home run, Bobby Abreu.
Well, that'll turn some frowns into smiles in a hurry.
But rebuilding takes time, and not everyone was willing to wait for the fruits of the labor to flourish. In 2000, the Phil's best pitcher demanded to be traded and got his wish.
I can understand his frustration because everybody wants to play for a winning team, and we were just not at that point yet. We just didn't have enough pieces of the puzzle.
One of those pieces that appeared to be ready was Burrow, who early in 2000 made his much-anticipated debut.
There's a lot of expectations, there's a lot of pressure, it seems like, but for me, to come out here and try to enjoy myself, take all this in. This is my first game in the major leagues, so I'm just going to try to take everything in, try to enjoy myself and not be too nervous.
Fly ball center. This one's hit a long way, and it is off the base of the wall.
Burrow would triple in his first big league game, and he was soon christened Pat the Bat.
Fly ball, deep right center field. Pat Burrow with his first home run here at Veterans Stadium. Wow, does he have some opposite field power.
Oh, wow! Look at this! A grand slam upper deck home run! What a tremendous shot by Pat Burrow!
He's going to be scary.
Ooh. Although Burrow had a solid rookie campaign, the Phillies endured their 7th straight losing season, finishing in the basement once again. So, seeking to inject some energy in the team, the Phils called on an old fan favorite to be their new skipper.
Being raised in the organization, playing on a World Series winner, playing in all-star games in that city, and then getting the opportunity to manage a team is obviously a dream come true.
At first, these young Phillies fed off Boa's fiery personality.
He has an idea of what it's like to be a professional in the way that he played the game, and I think we're going to play hard, and we're not going to be the whipping boys anymore.
With it to deep right center field, it is a grand slam, and the Phillies have taken a 7-6 lead. What a big blow by Rowland.
The team got off to a good start in 2001, thanks in part to that young shortstop who is now ready.
Hi, this is Jimmy Rollins, shortstop for the Philadelphia Phillies. Ed Wade, for those you don't know, GM right here, big man. Make my pockets feel good.
Not yet.
You could just sense a new spirit on the team.
Pat came up, Jimmy came up. You saw these guys come up with confidence and wanting to be impact players.
J-Roll's airtight defense and 46 stolen bases made him an all-star his rookie season. He added a whole new dynamic to the Phillies' attack.
I've been in the minor leagues with the Phillies, and I knew the talent that they had up there. And I just couldn't figure out, why they weren't winning with all the talented guys they have up there. And this year, things just seem to click.
The 2001 Phillies caught everyone by surprise with 86 victories, just their second winning season in the last 15 years. And Boa played a key role.
But that's where you got to give a shout out to the people back home in Oakland. Homie, Jimmy's homie.
In a lot of ways, he changed the mentality of the city and also changed the mentality of the guys on the field, that there was an expectation that we would go out there every single day with an opportunity to win that game, and we were not going to accept losing.
Still, the Phillies' Gold Glove third baseman did not want to stay in the city of brotherly love.
Unfortunately, we got to a point where Scott was going to be a free agent at the end of the season, so we set about the task of trying to put together the best deal that we could. But, to replace the Scott Rowland, we knew that we were going to end up with some pretty good players in that deal, but nobody who was really going to be able to replace everything that Scott brought to our ball club.
With a new ballpark a year away and a frustrated city aching for a winner, the Phillies scored a TKO. It was following the 2002 season that the Phillies made one of the most unprecedented moves in their history, signing superstar slugger Jim Thome.
I think Jim's signing was a pivotal moment for the organization. We were a year away from moving into Citizens Bank Park, and I really think that Jim allowed us to legitimize what we were trying to do.
Deep to right field. There's a long one.
I think the city's hungry. I think they're waiting for us to win, and you know what? We would love to give it to them.
Jim Thome has put the Phillies in front. His 43rd, and what a big one for Mr. Thome.
We gotta go out! It was the Jim Thome signing that gave people hope again. You had to go all the way back to Pete Rose, probably, to find a guy like this who actually wanted to come to Philadelphia. That never happened. Philadelphia was a place that people were always trying to flee from. And now, here was Jim Thome coming to their town. And it really did change everything.
How big has this guy come up?
And they didn't stop there. The Phils added Kevin Millwood to a staff that already included 22-year-old Brett Myers and a promising lefty in Randy Wolf.
The Phillies now have 4 14-game winners, something they haven't had since 1900 and 1901.
And early on, Millwood looked like an almost perfect acquisition.
Hit in the air to center field. It could be it. O'Day is underneath. And he makes the catch. Yes! Kevin Millwood has pitched a no-hit, no-run game at Veterans Stadium.
We have a good group of guys. We got guys that are winners and that really, truly, genuinely care about winning.
Game over. Phils win 5-4.
For the second time in 3 years, the Phils were vying for a playoff spot.
It's exciting. It certainly beats the alternative. We've been to the alternative where games in September haven't meant a lot.
Unfortunately, the Phillies fell short in the final week of the season, and that allowed everyone to turn their attention to the end of an era and say goodbye to the vet.
A lot of fans here just looking around and taking it all in. Memories that they've had, games they've seen here, heartbreaks and thrills.
I still think back on all the many, many, many great things, great games that I saw there.
Third base coach, Johnny.
Emotions reached new heights when the ball club honored many of the players who wore the Phillies uniform while playing at the vet.
Senior, and of course his son is the assistant general manager of the team, and Ruby involved as well.
You know, I get choked up because my dad happened to be on the field as well with me, and for me to be able to share that with my father and to share those kind of moments, Mike Schmidt and Jim Thome and Tug McGraw being on the mound, representing the 80 Phillies was real special for me. Something that I will never forget.
You could tear the vet down, but you could never tear down all the memories.
Well, I'm down here because, I went to a lot of Phillies games. It's a good part of the city's history, and I'm just here to say goodbye to the vet.
Had a lot of good times here. It's breaking my heart. It's making me cry.
When you live in Philly, this is a piece of your heart right here, Veterans Stadium.
It'll really sink in once you drive down this way next March and it's not here.
It began as a dream more than a decade ago, and now the dream is here.
Citizens Bank Park didn't change anything about the Phillies, except everything. The fact that you could actually go to a baseball game and it wasn't going to be played on plastic was a beautiful thing.
Being from Philadelphia, I'm naturally pessimistic, but this year I'm trying to get rid of that portion and being completely optimistic.
You can smell an air of success when you walk into the Philadelphia Phillies clubhouse.
A beautiful new ballpark and another big-time trade for closer Billy Wagner had some folks picking the Phils to win it all.
Could it be? Could it be? It is out of here! Number 400 for Jim
Tomey's milestone was just one of the 42 he would belt for the Phillies in 2004. And Abreu had his second 30 stolen base, 30 home run season.
It's got a chance. It's out of here. Walk-off game-winning home run, the All-Star, Bobby Abreu.
Fans also got another glimpse of the future with the ascension of their new second baseman.
Home run, Chase Utley, a 3-run shot.
Chase Utley can flat out hit.
Although the Phils held on to first place through the All-Star break, some key losing streaks put the team in jeopardy of missing the playoffs altogether, and their fourth-year skipper was now feeling the heat.
Come on, Bobby!
Marlins 1 out away from beating the Phils again.
No!
By early September, the Phillies were out of the postseason race.
Unbelievable, man.
And Boa's reign soon came to an end.
At times it gets to be kind of sad, being a Philadelphia fan. We've had a lot of disappointments in this city.
Success is measured in playoffs and championships here in Philadelphia, and I think all of us understand that. But internally, there was a sense of pride that we were, moving toward more and more success and getting closer and closer. And we really believed that at some point we were going to get there.
He's going to make.
And to lead them to that destination, the Phillies hired Charlie Manuel.
Our ultimate goal is to go to the World Series and win, of course. And that's what I'm here for. And basically, that's what we're going to do.
Wow, that's good. I'm start where I'm ahead, Charlie.
But then, fan favorite Tomey was injured.
Hi, what's up?
And that gave young slugger Ryan Howard the chance to flex his muscle.
Long drive! This game is over! The Phils have won it out of here!
Ryan hit 22 home runs in just 88 games and was Rookie of the Year.
Chase!
Utley also had a breakthrough season with 105 RBI.
Ryan Howard, Chase Utley. It was exciting to watch these young guys come up in Philadelphia because you sensed that they were bringing in a wave of talent that really could be the future.
It is out of here! The walk-off homer, Chase Utley!
Although they battled to the end, the 2005 Phils fell one game short of the postseason. And this time, the casualty was Ed Wade.
Let's go, Cole.
But his imprint on the Phillies is undeniable.
A lot of times you trade away these guys and you try to pick up that veteran for that 1 year in hopes of getting to the World Series that year. But with what the Phillies have been able to do, they've been able to keep us together. And with those guys, we've been able to go out there, have that confidence in every one of them because we know each other so well.
Hamels was a shining star in that homegrown nucleus, and when he made his much-anticipated debut in 2006, he sparkled.
Swing and a miss at the changeup, he got him. 10 strikeouts for Hamels.
These components became really the final pieces to what had started in 2000 with Pat Burrell and Jimmy Rollins.
Home run!
Pat hit 29 home runs, and Jimmy added a career-best 25 long balls.
Jimmy Rollins, a 3-run home run.
Chase had more than 200 hits and 102 RBI.
Utley extends his hitting streak to 25 consecutive days.
My whole goal is to win. I know Jimmy's is to win, and the same with Ryan. And everyone in this clubhouse wants to win. So as long as we have that mentality, we're going to be just fine.
And then there was the big fella.
It's my show now. It's my show. It's officially the Ryan Howard show. Oh my!
And did he put on a show?
That's 3 for Ryan Howard.
One Philly had never seen before.
It's the greatest show on earth right here.
Howard shattered Mike Schmidt's single-season home run record.
Well hit to the opposite field. Out of here. Number 58 for the big man. Wow.
His sensational sophomore season earned him the MVP award.
This is unbelievable.
New general manager Pat Gillick had acquired Aaron Rowan to patrol center field, and Philly fell in love.
Going back on it, Rowan, still on the run, at the track, at the wall. Oh, he caught it! Oh, my, he caught it! That is one of the best best catches you will ever see.
He also secured veteran pitcher Jamie Moyer.
9 in a row retired by Jamie Moyer.
Hello, Jimmy. Hey, boy.
But the Phils still struggled.
Pat Gillick, this is hard to take.
Yeah.
Your team is doing everything it can to blow a chance for the playoffs here.
And this time they would miss the postseason by just 3 games.
Unfortunately, last year, we fell a little short, but we have the nucleus of the same team back here, and Pat and the organization have gone out this offseason and added to that, hoping that we can expand on where we left off at the end of last season.
The current bunch has been around, Jimmy and Pat and Chase and Ryan for 3 or 4 years now.
Come on, Rhino, let's play. I had that.
And there you get to the point. It was nice to get to finish second and go down the last game of the season, but what counts is getting there. And now this current team knows that there's more work to be done.
Beautiful day here in Clearwater, Florida, trying to get better. So I'm gonna go get better.
The pressure was on as the 2007 season got underway, and Jimmy did his best to fire up the team and fan the flames in New York.
I think we ought to tend to beat the NL East, finally. I think we ought to tend to beat the NL East.
So Jimmy Rollins, who pronounced the Phillies the team to beat during the offseason, much to the ire of many.
And everybody keeps saying, wow, what a bold statement to be made that, we're the team to beat.
That's all on paper. You look at the Met staff and, I look at them, I'm like, those dudes are getting old. And we have the young guns. Everybody's in their prime.
Obviously, it was something that he wanted us to have confidence in ourselves.
By the way, it is disrespect to the Braves and the Mets. I don't care what they want to try to say or what kind of spin they want to put on it.
People use it in certain ways and made it, I think, a lot bigger thing than what he was trying to make it.
Fastball hit to deep right field. Home run, Jimmy Rollins.
And from the first game to the last, Jimmy backed up his words.
Jimmy Rollins with his second home run of the night. Jimmy Rollins, big talker, power hitter.
He is backing it up.
Jimmy is a go person.
Go, 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 go!
And he loves that red light on the camera.
That's what we call stunner shades, baby. Ooh, I'm cold with it. Ooh, wait.
Jimmy Rollins is such a dynamic player. The number of ways he can beat you is just remarkable.
He showed. He carried our team. He played 160 games, played every inning of the season.
Jimmy Rollins does it again, 2-0 Phillies. Rollins to third, and the Phillies lead it 5-3.
But despite Jimmy's MVP caliber season, the Phillies were almost out of it by mid-September.
There you go, keep fighting, baby.
And they did.
2007 was beginning to look like another one of those seasons, and we'd all seen those seasons before in Philadelphia. And then something miraculous happened.
The Mets, who had a 7-game lead with 17 left to play, embarked on an epic collapse, and the Phillies, unlike seasons past, won down the stretch.
Never giving up, battling back.
A 7-game lead with 17 games left to play, you just don't blow a lead like that.
Swing and a miss. 13 strikeouts tonight for Hamels, who has been dominant.
And the Phillies, even though they were still trailing the Mets up until the last few days of the season, you could just sense that they really believed that they were going to win this thing.
With 1 game left in the season, the teams were tied.
We came out on the field and the fans are already cheering and going crazy, and I'm looking up like, man, these fans are really pumped for this game. And I happened to look at the out-of-town scoreboard, and they showed the Marlins over the Mets. It was already like 4-0 by the time I came out, so I'm already smiling. I'm like, oh, shoot, okay, we're in business.
Phillies with a win today guarantee themselves of at least moving on to tomorrow. But if the Mets also lose today, then the Phillies would be the National League East champions.
Then you think about yourself, well, it doesn't matter if they lose. If we don't win, we'll be stuck. It's a 1-game playoff, and you never want to have to be in that situation.
So Jimmy did what Jimmy does.
He starts it out with a base hit. Does he set the table or what?
Jimmy's a guy that all along, 1 has been known as our team leader. 2 has been a guy that, when he goes, we go.
There goes J-Roll. It's where we'll not be in town. Stolen base.
Stowe second.
Rollins going. The pitch down and in. No throw by Flores.
Stowe third.
Steele second and third. Now.
Somebody came to play, that's for sure. Right out of the chute. Look at this guy.
Here comes J-Roll. Jimmy Rollins gets the Phillies on the board. He did that himself.
Philadelphians expect the worst. They've been conditioned to expect the worst. And that day, they realized the worst was not going to happen.
What's more, Jimmy was one triple shy of becoming just the fourth player ever with 20 home runs, 20 stolen bases, 20 doubles, and 20 triples in one season. And Jimmy got a triple.
Rollins on his way into second. He's going to try for third. Here's the relay, and it is not in time. He got it. He has got to 20, 20, 20, and 20 in the most dramatic fashion.
They were going to win the National League East. The Phillies were going to win.
How's that for an MVP?
Last year's MVP, Ryan Howard, in the dugout, nodding yes, yes, yes.
Pass the torch, big guy.
Rollins would indeed be named the MVP in 2007, but the more important achievement was one strike away.
Myers standing on the edge to push the Phillies into the postseason. Here's the windup and the 1-2 pitch. Call third strike, it's over! The Phillies are the National League Eastern Division champions for 2007!
The final out was made, and it was just like, yes, we did it.
Look at the seat on the field! Look at the seat on the stand! This is incredible! The Phillies are National League East champions! And yes, Jimmy Rollins, the Phillies are the team to beat.
We just overcame so much that we were able to take a deep breath and celebrate. I think we probably celebrated a little too much.
And after being swept by the Rockies in the division series, they learned that you don't really celebrate until you win it all.
It looks good for next year, knowing that we are a team that's capable of being in the playoffs. We don't have to worry about, are we good enough within ourselves? Not from the press, not from the fans, not from the organization, ourselves. We did it. We are a playoff team. Let's go a little deeper in this year in 08.
And so the defending National League East champions entered the 2008 season with a special sense of purpose. And they were bolstered by a key new addition.
Brad Lidge on to try to finish it off.
If you talk about a big acquisition for the Phillies for the 2008 season, it had to be Brad Lidge.
I felt like this was going to be a good year, but I knew I needed to come out and prove it.
Swung and missed. He struck him out.
When Brad Lidge is in the game, fighting Phils expect to win that one.
And of course, the Phils still had one of the most feared lineups in all of baseball.
And score! Home run, Chase Utley. Forget about that one. It's gone!
Throw to the plate, saved at home plate.
When they get it going and we score runs fast in bunches.
The Phillies with another 20-run outburst.
This team has a lot of different ways it can hurt you. It can hurt you with the bats, it can hurt you on the bases, and we have obviously an outstanding pitching staff.
There's a little changeup from Jamie Moyer.
Steady Joe Blanton, who was acquired in a midseason trade, wouldn't lose a game in a Phillies uniform. And the resurgence of Brett Myers as a starter solidified the rotation.
Struck him out. Number 10 on the night for Brett Myers, who has thrown 8 shutout innings.
Despite their high hopes, the Phillies trailed in the playoff hunt come mid-September, but that soon changed.
And the Phils sweep the Brewers, winning all 4 games, and now are tied for the top spot in the wild card.
And their September surge was fueled by the big man.
It is out of here, Ryan Howard.
He got in that stage where it did not matter what the pitcher threw him, as if that ball was anywhere near the plate, he was going to hammer it.
You get too close to Howard right now, you're going to get burned.
His 32 RBI were a franchise record for September and powered the Phils to 13 wins in their final 16 games. Meanwhile, the Mets were once again collapsing, and the Titans vaulted right past them.
Phil's trying to clinch National League East for the 2nd straight year, and the man who has been perfect is out there on the mound.
But just when it looked like Lidge might be human after all, Rollins made a play that will live on forever in Phillies lore.
J-Roll dives to Utley, one, The Phillies are the National League Eastern Division champions.
For the season-ending double play by Jimmy Rollins, to me, goes down in Phillies history as one of the great moments.
But this was just the start of their quest.
We know that winning a division doesn't guarantee you anything. It just means you have a chance to go win a World Series.
With the knowledge gained from the 2007 postseason, the Phillies entered the division series against Milwaukee, a more mature and confident bunch. And their ace set the tone right from the start.
Swing and a miss, struck him out.
Hamels pitched 8 shutout innings in the opener, and just like he had done all season long, Lidge shut the door.
Swing and a miss! He struck him out, and the ball game is over. The Phillies take Game 1 of the National League Division Series.
In Game 2, the Phillies had to face CC Sabathia, who had served notice to the National League the last 3 months of the season with 11 wins and 3 shutouts.
Everybody had heard so much about CC Sabathia, how he was practically unbeatable.
Apparently, Shane Victorino did not get the memo.
Swing and a drive. Braun going back. He looks up, and it is gone! Yes! Grand slam! Victorino! Phillies lead here in the second, 5-1.
CC had that kind of aura about him, and Shane just basically slayed it with one swing. That gave the team a lot of confidence and gave the city a lot of confidence.
And 2 games later, the Brewers were gone.
The Philadelphia Phillies are heading to the National League Championship Series. A date with the Dodgers is next.
The Dodgers, of course, featured Manny Ramirez, who almost single-handedly powered his team into the playoffs. But in Game 1, it was a Phillies slugger who made all the difference.
Line drive to left. It's got a chance. Out of here. Pat Burrow with a line drive home run.
In the second game, Brett Myers helped his own cause with an incredibly productive day at the plate.
He gets a base hit into center field. Around third, Ruiz. He is going to score. Brett Myers has given the Phillies the lead.
And Victorino is emerging as a postseason force to be reckoned with.
Fastball line to left center, a base hit. 2 runs will score.
Shane was a big factor for us.
An unbelievable postseason of clutch hitting continues for Shane Victorino.
Shane was the knight in shining armor who has stepped up for us, not only with the bat, but with the glove as well.
And makes the catch. What a catch by Shane Victorino.
Shane's all-around effort helped the Phillies take a 2-0 lead. In L.A., he delivered his message in a different way.
And there's one behind the back of Victorino.
And in the 4th game of the series, he heroically erased a late 2-run deficit.
That's driven down into the right field corner. You're on the run. He turns, he looks, and it is gone! It clears into the Phillies bullpen! The game is tied on a 2-run home run by Shane Victorino!
Victorino has been in the middle of everything for the Phillies.
Victorino's feats were becoming commonplace, but Matt Stairs came out of the blue.
You know, everyone knows I have one thing on my mind, that is to try to hit a home run every time I step in that batter's box.
Stairs rips one into the night, way out of here. Phillies lead in the 8th on a pinch hit, home run from Matt Stairs.
You want that one special hit. There's no better feeling. You know, you come in that dugout and everyone's extremely happy, giving you high fives, pounding on your helmet. It's unbelievable.
The Phillies with a come-from-behind win that leaves them 1 win away from the World Series.
With the Fall Classic on their doorstep, the Phillies turned to Hamels, who delivered yet again with 7 innings of 1-run ball.
Call third strike, fastball at the knees, and Hamels rings up Kent for the final out here in the bottom of the 7th. Cole Hamels has been outstanding.
By now, Lidge was 5 for 5 in postseason save opportunities, and he held the Dodgers in check once again.
Swing and a pop-up. This game is going to be over. Carlos Ruiz squeezes it, and the Phillies are the National League champions.
The Phillies were making their first World Series appearance since 1993. It had been 28 years since they'd won their first title, and they were determined to win another.
Find a way to win. That's all you got to do.
Utley didn't waste any time setting the tone.
There's a drive, deep to right field, going back Zobrist at the warning track, at the wall.
2-run home run, Chase Utley here in the top of the first.
And that picked up the confidence of the Phillies ace.
The moment that I was able to go out there with having a 2-0 lead made things a little bit easier for me.
Curveball back to Hamels, nice pickup, and then the underhands to first to end the inning.
With Hamels and Lidge continuing the postseason formula that had worked so well, the Phillies took back home field advantage by winning in Tampa Bay.
Lidge with a 1-2-3 ninth inning, and the Phillies have game 1, 3-2.
After losing the second contest, the Phillies headed home to their faithful, frenetic fans.
The World Series returns to Philadelphia. The Phillies hosting a World Series game for the first time since 1993.
I couldn't wait to get back to Philly. The fans have been outstanding the entire playoffs, and I knew that with this World Series, they weren't going to miss it. They were going to come out, they were going to be hardcore. From the intros, it was just a great feeling because you can feel the electricity in the crowd just go through you.
Jamie Moyer, pitching the first World Series game in his 22-year career, danced around the young Rays lineup.
Swing and a miss, he struck him out.
And the Phillies sluggers began to cash in. At the bank.
Way out of here. Ryan Howard has gone back-to-back with Chase Utley, and the Phillies now lead it 4-1.
Just got to get that back, get that consistency back.
The Rays fought back with 2 runs in the 7th and 1 in the 8th to tie the game at 4. But in the 9th, Carlos Ruiz, whose bat had come alive in the LCS, delivered his biggest and shortest hit of the playoffs.
Barehanded by Longoria, an underhanded throw, sails over the head of the catcher, and the ball game is over. Brooklyn has scored the winning run. Ruiz mobbed at first base as the Phillies pour out of the dugout.
Chooch found that hole. Didn't go too far, but it ended up working out for us. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good.
The Phils were better than good in Game 4, as the big man set the tone with an opposite field blast.
Lofted in the air to deep left field. Out of here! 3-run home run, Ryan Howard.
That big way to go. That baby, big boy.
And pitcher Joe Blanton delivered the highlight of the night when he connected with a shot of his own.
That ball is broke. Goodbye. Home run for Joe Blanton.
Can you believe it?
When you're playing at home and you have a chance to knock a team out, that's what you want to do. It kind of just drives home the fact that we're the better team.
Jason Worth continued the assault, and the exclamation mark was provided by Howard.
Ryan took over.
Swinging a high drive. Deep right center. Forget about this one. It is gone.
He ended up hitting a couple home runs and having a big night.
And the Phillies have turned it into a laugher.
And the Phils turned to J.C. Romero to polish off their 3rd win of the series.
Swing and a miss. He struck him out. The Phillies are 1 win away from a world championship. Tonight, the Phillies stand on the doorstep of history with a 3-1 series lead over the Tampa Bay Rays and just 1 win away from their 2nd ever World Series title. Fastball, strike 3 call.
Hamels appeared to be en route to match the postseason record with his 5th victory, but his quest would be derailed by the heavy rains and wind that halted play after 5 1/2 and forced the first suspended game in series history. It seemed only fitting that Phillies fans, having waited almost 3 decades for a title, would have to wait 2 more days. And when that next day finally dawned, both the fans and the Phils were ready.
We're about to jump right into the bottom of the 6th inning.
Both teams knew going into that game that it was going to be a sprint. There's no time to sit around. You got to try and jump on it as quick as possible.
Worth a shallow fly ball. Iwamura can't make the play. And the Phillies take the lead.
Once again, the Rays came back to tie things up and appeared on the verge of taking the lead when Utley made a play for the ages.
Swing a ground ball back up toward the middle. Utley has it.
When I saw Chase ranging back up the middle to get the ball, I knew that it was going to be a tight play to try to get him at first base, and it was heads up on his part to make that fake throw.
Now he's going to come home. Bartlett's going to try to score. Out is the call to end the inning.
We'll be talking about that forever, I think. I mean, historically, that was an amazing, amazing baseball play.
And that set the stage for Burrell, whose first hit of the series at last as a Philly was enormous.
into second with a leadoff double.
With the go-ahead run in scoring position, the Phillies needed one more big hit to send everyone home happy.
And a ground ball up the middle, base hit. Pedro Feliz delivers. 4-3 Philadelphia.
Let's go! 4-3 Phillies, ninth inning. Everybody standing, waving their rally towels. And the Phillies are 1 out away from winning the World Series. But the possible tying run is at second with two down.
I remember hearing a little bit of the crowd. Most of the time you blocked that out, but that was a pretty special moment, and it was pretty loud. I'm thinking to myself, just throw the best slider you've got.
It was pure joy.
The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
I sprinted as fast as I could. I don't even know if I ran that fast all year. When they went down to their knees, I told myself I'm taking them both out.
The quarter-century wait was over, for the 2008 Phillies had brought their city a championship. Baseball fans in Philadelphia hadn't experienced this kind of euphoria since 1980.
Campeones, número uno.
The resounding success of the 2008 team helped to erase all the bitter disappointments of the past.
The city will always remember us, and they'll always remember these players that have come through the hard times and finally brought something to them.
This group is multi-talented and at their peak, and as they celebrate their newfound place amongst baseball champions, we can only dream of more moments like this in the years to come. In more than 125 years of baseball, the Phillies have left us with some indelible memories. Throughout those years, almost 2,000 men have made up the Phillies roster and coaching staff. Some were among the very best.
Mike Smith for the home run.
Some were leaders.
Come on, Mike, nice and easy.
Some played with unbridled energy.
Go, 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 go. Stolen base.
And some had incredible heart.
What a play by Aaron Rowan.
Which brings us to the Fantastic 40, the ultimate Phillies 40-man roster. These are men who established an unforgettable connection with the fans of Philadelphia.
Tonight is Tony Taylor night.
They are the special few who exemplified every component of the memorable. Here then are your Fantastic 40.
I'll tell you one thing about John Kruk. One of the best pure natural hitters I ever played with.
John Kruk is 4 for 4.
John Kruk was not only an offensive threat, he was an outstanding defensive first baseman.
He takes a base hit away from Deion Sanders.
In between those lines, he was one of the most intense guys that I played with.
Kruk, a high drive to deep right field. He's heading for third.
John Kruk was and is such a beloved guy in Philadelphia.
Ryan Howard.
This guy's he's been off the chart as far as production goes in baseball.
Out of here, home run, Ryan Howard.
With one swing of the bat, it might be 1 run, it might be 3 runs, it might be 4 runs.
A grand slam for Ryan Howard.
When a guy like Ryan gets hot, he does damage. He will carry you.
Forget about it. Ryan Howard has given the Phillies the lead.
Ryan Howard, he's a man among boys out there on the field.
What a drive by Ryan Howard.
Sammy was just a great player. I mean, a lot of energy, brought a lot of energy to it, would go out there every day, gave it all he had.
Sam Wells scores!
The one thing about Sammy that people didn't realize, he was as tough as anybody. I used to just love to watch him run.
Line down the right field line, fair ball going all the way to the corner. Watch Sammy run.
If he got on base, there was trouble. He could steal second and third, and also he could beat you with his bat to and in home runs.
Sammy is certainly a player who is well remembered in this city.
Chase is just a hard-nosed player, man. He just comes here every day and he plays hard, he slides hard, he runs hard.
On his way into second, he's going to try for third.
Chase Utley's immersed in every game to the point where he's almost got this feel for what's about to happen.
Has no play at first, throws home, and out.
He's just a guy that you watch him play, and it's like, you can't believe some of the stuff that he does.
Line drive caught. He dives for the bag at second. Double play. What a play by Chase Utley, who was right.
What Chase is able to do is huge in our lineup. He's a tremendous hitter.
And score! Home run, Chase Utley. His 6th in the last 5 games as he ties a Phillies record.
The way he plays, I appreciate the fact that when I watch him, he respects the game.
Scott did a tremendous job for us. He was really the first player in an extended period of time that had the type of impact that a championship caliber club needs to have, both offensively and defensively.
It's a home run for Scott Rowland.
Some of the things I've seen him do at third base far exceed anything I could have ever done in terms of athletic ability.
Great diving catch by Scott Rowland.
Dick Allen could hit a ball harder than anybody I've seen. He was the most exciting power hitter.
Allen connects solidly, and there it goes. It's a home run.
He had tremendous bat speed and just sheer brute strength.
And many of these National League players consider Allen the strongest man in the world.
You put him at third base, and he became very, very outstanding, and he could do it all.
I thought he was one of the greatest ball players I ever played with, and it was great to play with him. Michael Jack Schmidt, greatest third baseman in history of baseball. The way he hit baseballs, they just fly off his bat into the upper deck.
Tremendous home run by Mike Schmidt.
He was a brilliant third baseman. He was so agile and was one of the game's great defensive third basemen.
What a grab by Schmidt. Oh, what a play by Schmidt, a double play.
The 500 home run club and the 10 gold gloves, unbelievable combination of power and defense.
3-time MVP, 10-time gold glove winner.
He was the best defensive third baseman of his time. He could steal bases, he could hit for power, he could hit for average. What couldn't he do?
You have to go way back to remember Hall of Famer Dave "Beauty" Bancroft, who played shortstop for the Phillies for more than 5 seasons. The graceful switch hitter was a key member of the 1915 pennant winners. Our next shortstop is a bit more familiar.
I was lucky enough to watch Larry Bowa play. I never saw a guy play shortstop day in and day out like Bo.
Rifles the first base, double play.
Larry Bowa was very important to the Phillies throughout those division championships of the 70s.
Bowa breaking, here's the throw, and he is safe at second base.
But he's a very fiery individual, very loud, very emotional.
Nobody wanted to win more than Larry Bowa. I mean, he's probably the most knowledgeable baseball guy I've ever been around.
Honestly, for their lineup, the guy that makes it go is Jimmy Rollins at the top. He really is.
Triple number 20 for Jimmy Rollins.
He's one of the best leadoff men in the game. He can hurt you with power and speed.
Jimmy Rollins steals another base, his 31st in a row.
He's a guy who wants the ball hit to him, with the game on the line, with the season on the line.
The Phillies are the National League Eastern Division champions.
He won the silver bat, he won the gold glove, and the MVP. That wraps it up right there to tell you what he means to the Fighting Phils.
That's how we do it, baby. Represent the P.
You
have to have one guy in your clubhouse that has leadership ability. My choice for that, of course, was Darren Dalton.
He set the tone for that 93 team. He was the captain of the team.
Nobody pop off in the paper, all right? Let it go. Let him go. We got one more game left. No popping off in the paper.
He knew if we had to win that he was going to have to play a big role in that.
Long drive, deep right field, home run, Darren Dalton.
Darren Dalton was a rock, a leader, an outstanding person.
Catcher Andy Semenuk won the hearts of Phillies fans through his hard work and determination. Andy was as tough as they come, often playing through pain, and was the anchor behind the plate for the 1950 National League champions. Bob Boone was one of the best defensive catchers the Phillies ever had.
Here comes the throw to the plate. Baker is out. What a great play. Baker out at the plate.
But Boone had nearly 1,900 hits in his career and often came up clutch to help the Phillies win their first World Series title. Jerry McGee was a 5-tool player during the dead ball era of the early 1900s. The Phillies left fielder for a decade, McGee led the league in RBI 4 times and won the 1910 batting title.
What I recall the most about those years were the upper deck home runs by Luzinski.
Swing and a long drive, deep left field, out of here, home run, the ball.
Luzinski was a huge part of those late 70s teams. The popular slugger ranks 5th on the Phillies' all-time home run list.
I think Pat Burrell could and should be the best right-handed hitter in baseball. This kid has Luzinski power.
Home run, Pat Burrell!
Pat does a lot of things behind the scenes that he doesn't get credit for. He really is a better influence in the clubhouse than people realize.
This guy just tells you what he's all about. He likes to play baseball and he likes to go out there and compete.
Far and away, the Phillies' greatest left fielder has to be Ed Delahanty, who has the 4th highest batting average in big league history.
That career mark of .346 made him one of the most feared hitters of the 1890s. He once had 10 straight hits and is one of 3 Phillies to hit 4 home runs in a single game.
Nels was a totally different player. Nels had the heart of a lion. Anyone that thinks size means something, all you got to do is look at the highlights of Lenny Dykstra.
Lenny was one of those players that could single-handedly change a game if he decided that's what he wanted to do.
Base hit, game over. What a huge win.
For a leadoff hitter, and as scrappy as Lenny was, he had some power.
A long drive to deep right field. This ball is way out of here.
His home run in Game 6, that was a Mr. October moment. If the Phillies win that game, that home run lives on in Phillies lore for centuries.
Way out of here. Second deck home run for Lenny Dykstra.
Gary Maddox was as dependable a center fielder as there ever was.
What a great catch!
2/3 of the earth is covered by water, a third is covered by Gary Maddox, so he was the man out there, Secretary of Defense.
What a sensational grab!
Nickname, the Secretary of Defense. I mean, that's one of the greatest nicknames of all time.
At the wall. What a catch!
Sliding Billy Hamilton was a Philly from 1890 through 95. And during that time, he averaged almost 150 runs scored and 85 stolen bases a year. In 1894, he was part of the only 400 hitting outfield in baseball history. And, of course, there was his whiteness.
Richie Ashburn had a tremendous dual career in this town as probably the most popular personality that's walked through here in sports. He was a Rookie of the Year. He was an exciting player to watch.
He just showed up every day and played as hard as he could. He did have great speed, which was his biggest asset in the outfield.
He was a great leadoff hitter, the best there was, a 3-hire hitter.
He had a tendency to slap the ball not really swing at it like hitting home runs, but just slap the ball.
His will to win was one of the greatest things I've ever seen.
Then he went on to a second career to become a beloved broadcaster in this town.
Rich, here we go, 1978.
That's right, Harry, and I believe that this is the best Phillies ball club that I've seen in Philadelphia. Almost everybody picks him to win.
27 years alongside Whitey at the microphone was truly a joy. He was a dear friend, and I think about him all the time.
Richie touched everybody in Philadelphia while he was here, either as a player or a broadcaster. In terms of being beloved, he's definitely number one.
Bobby is arguably one of the best and most productive outfielders we've ever had in our organization.
This one is gone. Two-run homer for Bobby Abreu.
Always been, in my opinion, one of the most talented players in the game.
It's got a chance. It's out of here. He was one of the most consistent players I've been around. If you look back at what he did in Philadelphia and look back on what his career was like, how he stacks up against the rest of the history of Phillies baseball players, he's one of the greatest ones.
Johnny Callison was a multi-talented player, could run, throw, hit with power. In the 1964 season on a Saturday, he had 3 home runs.
A tremendous home run.
He was a solid player, a real professional.
The big hitter on that 1915 Phillies team was Gabby Cravath. Gabby was the big power man for quite a few years, led the league in home runs year after year.
Sam Thompson was another member of that 400-hitting outfield. He was one of the game's greatest RBI men, and his .506 career slugging percentage was the second best of the century.
Chuck Klein turned out to be one of the greatest hitting Philadelphia Phillies of all time. He was a man who amassed some remarkable statistics.
Chuck Klein, one of the greatest of them all. Hit one for us, Chuck.
He was the first Philly player to be an MVP. He's the only Phillies player to ever win a Triple Crown.
Just check his record someday. He's something special and a beautiful person.
We had what I consider one of the all-time big game pitchers in baseball.
What a job by Shelley. He gets him.
He was the kind of pitcher that we felt when he took the ball, we had a good chance to win.
And his big game reputation was born one October in Philadelphia.
In Game 5, it was Curt Schilling. Curt Schilling was going to take the baseball, and he was not going to let go of the baseball. That was one of the most remarkable performances you'll ever see in a postseason game.
Strikeout number 5 for Schilling.
For Curt Schilling to come up as big as he did in a must-win, they lose, they go home, we're the world champs, or we move on to Game 6, big game.
Curt Schilling goes the distance tonight.
That game might be the game that took Schilling to where he is today.
In 1911, along came a pitcher who turned in the greatest rookie season of any pitcher, Grover Cleveland Alexander.
In 1915, he had an ERA of 1.22. 1915, 16, and 17, he won 30 or more games. In 1916, he pitched 16 shutouts, which is an unheard of figure even then. Today, whole teams don't even come close to 16 shutouts.
Steve Carlton was a guy that there was an added bounce to my step every time I knew he was going to pitch.
This guy was so dominant, and they just knew when he was going to pitch, there was going to be a chance to win the game.
His first season here, the Phillies were still pretty terrible. Only won 59 games that season. Carlton won 27 of them.
To me, he just represented winning. And one of the things, whenever he came in the clubhouse, when he was pitching, he would walk in, one of the first things he would say is, "Okay, boys, let's go. It's win day. Today's win day."
He was just the best left-handed pitcher of his time, and we were lucky enough to see him in those glory years.
One of baseball's original bonus babies, the Phillies left-hander Curt Simmons.
There were a few teams after me, and of course the Phillies ended up signing me. I was a little wild, and I had good fastball, and I took care of left-handers pretty well.
I think as far as my pitching is concerned, I don't throw quite as hard maybe, and I don't think I'm quite as wild either.
I started winning and less walks and controlled things a little better. 1950 on, I got a little more confidence and of course won some games.
A three-time All-Star with the Phillies, Simmons won 17 games for the 1950 Whiz Kids, despite missing a month for National Guard training.
Robin Roberts is the greatest pitcher I've ever seen with the Phillies.
Each time he went out to the mound, it was sort of a story in the Philadelphia area because you know he was going to give you your best effort. 20-win seasons almost every year, you could count on it.
Robin Roberts was just a spectacular pitcher. He was the All-Star 5 years during a 6-year period.
17 innings, 15 innings, but it didn't bother me. My arm was of such that I could pitch that long and still have good stuff.
He was, without a doubt, the workhorse of that era.
Brad Lidge was the most valuable player on the Phillies because of the fact he didn't blow a save.
Brad Lidge on to try to finish it off. He struck him out. A pair of strikeouts as he nails down the save.
This guy has ice water in his veins. Tremendous fastball, a slider that breaks down hard and away.
Game over. The confidence, the fans behind me, the energy. Every time I went out there, I felt better than I've ever felt in my career.
Lidge with a 1-2-3 ninth inning.
All of a sudden, before you knew it, here we were in the playoffs and winning a World Series. Phillies are champions of baseball.
Larry Anderson is the most fun-loving human being ever to pass through a baseball clubhouse.
I think everybody should have a Larry Anderson on their team. When he gets in the game, he's a totally different person, and he takes care of business.
You have to have fun, and I think that's been my personality, have fun.
Guys like Larry Anderson and guys like that have been helping me on the practical jokes.
The biggest thing is I enjoyed my time playing.
Mitch was a great competitor. He wanted the ball when the game was on the line.
Wild thing is on for Philadelphia, Mitch Williams.
Or if he blew a save or lost a game, he could come back the next day and handle it extremely well.
Swing and a miss, he struck him out.
There were a lot of games where he'd come in for the ninth inning and start off with a walk, but he always seemed to manage to get out of it.
3-2 pitch, swing and a miss. He struck him out with a slider, and that will retire the side.
When you have a manager that gives you the ball and walks away and lets you get it done, more times than not, it got done.
Mitch Williams recording his 41st save. That's a new Phillies season record.
That said an awful lot about a relief pitcher who had a lot greater year than giving up that home run to Joe Carter. 43 saves. He was pretty awesome.
Tug was not just a great relief pitcher. He had a personality.
Tug McGraw gave a lot back to the fans. He smiled. He would go and interact with them, and they really enjoyed that part of him.
He was always very emotional, and he was very successful. When you're successful in Philadelphia, you're a hero.
And that last World Series game is etched in Philadelphia's history's memory.
It doesn't get any better than that, man. Philadelphia, first world championship. Wow, it's awesome.
When Jim Fregosi led the '93 Phillies to the World Series, he did so with the deft touch of a master motivator.
Jim was a great manager in the fact that he let the clubhouse dictate itself.
He set down rules, we followed the rules, but if there was an issue in the clubhouse, he let us handle it ourselves.
They loved the clubhouse, they loved being around each other, and I think that had the biggest influence in 1993.
He was the same way with his position players. He let them do their job. Some nights they got it done, some nights they didn't.
I couldn't have been more proud of a group of guys. It had to really be the highlight and the most fun and the most excitement that I ever had in my career.
Manager, NL Eastern Division champs, number 46, Dallas Green.
It all came together in 1980 under Dallas Green, who came down to manage the ball club.
Dallas's style, he's a rough and tumble guy and a yeller and a screamer. Some players didn't like that particular style.
Dallas came in and he starts bringing this we not I and let's get it going, guys.
Hey, good inning, Bobby. Come on, let's go. Come on, Bobby.
Dallas in his own style was what the team needed at that time.
When they realized that the way he pushed them is what drove them to that place.
That place was the 1980 World Series, and Dallas will forever be remembered in Philadelphia as the manager who guided the Phillies to their first championship.
Gene Mauch was an interesting person to be around. He knew the game and knew how to manage better than anybody I've ever seen.
It's amazing that Gene was the brightest, most alert baseball man I've ever been around. Managed for a long time, and he never won a pennant.
Monk managed the Phils from 1960 through 68, and although he's most often recalled for presiding over the great collapse of '64, he is the winningest manager in Phillies history.
I just know that every day, every year that I managed, I gave it the best shot I had, and fortunately I had a bunch of great young people to work with.
Eddie Sawyer managed the Phillies twice for a total of 817 games. His shining moment came in 1950 when he led the Whiz Kids to a 91-win season and the team's first World Series appearance in 35 years. And then there's Charlie.
I felt that Charlie was the right guy to come in and lead the way, as we've seen through the course of postseason play. And Charlie's managerial style was exactly what the club needed.
He gets every one of these players to believe that they're the best player in the world for that particular game, and they respond. There was never any adversity in the clubhouse. That's tough to do for a whole season.
He wants you to be on time, he wants you to play hard, and he wants you to be consistent mentally, just like he is. As a team, it's been steady as is, and I think that comes from the skipper. I think he's just done a fabulous job.
Charlie brought this team into spring training and, in no uncertain terms, prepared them to win baseball games and win the championship.
This is for Philadelphia!
Our Fantastic 40 would not be complete without honorary member John Vukovich. Vuk played for the Phillies for 6 seasons and then set a team record as a coach under 6 different managers. Vuk passed away in March of 2007, but his legacy will live on forever. And so we begin another era of Phillies baseball, one from which the next Fantastic 40 will undoubtedly emerge.
We have a great core, a great nucleus of players. We're still in their prime. We believe a lot of these guys have even more in the tank than they had, even as a World Series champion.
The 2008 chapter of Phillies history was indeed authored by champion.
It's celebration time right now. 2 million people, it really is.
Seeing this right now, it's pretty special right here.
They are now among those special players who have earned the love of the city, and there is no greater or more everlasting glory to achieve. I'm Harry Callis. Thanks for watching.